Carbohydrates, more commonly known as sugar. Personally, I think they are one of the biomolecules that are often overlooked. Proteins and nucleotides or nucleic acids often gain the spotlight, but carbohydrates are actually very important and they have a wide range of functions. Their study is even central in understanding the pathogenesis of cancer. So, what are carbohydrates? Carbohydrates, also called as glucans or glycans, are the most abundant biomolecules on Earth. They play a central role in how autotrophs harvest energy from the sunlight. And as I've said, their function varies from structural, such as being part of bacterial and plant cell walls, protective, so being part of the cell wall, they offer protection to your bacteria and offers a rigid structure to your plants. Some carbohydrates also act as lubricants. So there are carbohydrates that are found in your joints, and they are the ones that provide protection and lubrication in your joints. And of course, carbohydrates, when they are conjugated to other biomolecules, particularly proteins, they are also part of the processes involved in cellular recognition and adhesion. So you will see that most of these conjugated carbohydrates are found on your cell membrane. Carbohydrates are polyhydroxyaldehydes or ketones. And this term also includes substances that yield such compounds upon hydrolysis. From the term itself, we see what functional groups are found in your carbohydrates. So they are polyhydroxy, meaning you have a lot of hydroxyl groups or your OH functional groups. And they also possess either an aldehyde functional group or a ketone functional group. Most, but not all, of your carbohydrates have an empirical formula of C sub n H2n. That is why they gained the term carbohydrates because they are hydrates of carbon. So you have one water molecule per one carbon atom. But the elements that we see in your carbohydrates are not limited to these three. Some carbohydrates also contain nitrogen, phosphorus, and sulfur when they are derivatized. So an example is your glucose. So the molecular formula of glucose is C6H12O6 and the empirical formula is CH2O. Another example is ribose found in your ribonucleic acid. Its molecular formula is C5H10O5 and again its empirical formula is CH2O. Now, there are several types of carbohydrates depending on their size. So, your carbohydrates can be simple or complex. For the simple carbohydrates, we have monosaccharides composed of only one unit of carbohydrate. We also have the disaccharides composed of two units of carbohydrates. And we also have the complex carbohydrates, and these are your polysaccharides, composed of 20 or more units of carbohydrates. So you have 20 or more monosaccharides linked together. Those are your polysaccharides. And examples include your starch and glycogen. Now, in between this simple and complex, there is another term used, and it's called oligosaccharide. In some references, your disaccharides would fall under your oligosaccharide. And then you also have your trisaccharides and so on. But most commonly discussed are your monosaccharides and your disaccharides. For your oligosaccharides, you often see them conjugated to proteins, the one I mentioned a while ago. So they are called glycoconjugates, and they mostly play important roles in cellular recognition, in signaling, and cellular adhesion. Now, among your monosaccharides, we have some examples shown here, your glucose, fructose, and galactose. Glucose is the most abundant carbohydrate in nature. For your disaccharides, some examples shown here are maltose, lactose, and sucrose. Now, when your monosaccharides link together, the linkage is called a glycosidic bond. But before we discuss the glycosidic bond, we will first tackle your monosaccharides.